por tus palabras. Desde luego un mensaje alentador, ¿no? Estos avances de Spain Up y de España en estos tiempos pasados en un contexto socioeconómico muy complicado. Entonces, bueno, pues es cierto que los países, bueno, es muy importante que cada país tome las riendas de su propio camino al impacto. Si bien es necesario que este liderazgo se dé dentro del marco, digamos, de las directrices que nos han de servir de guía a nivel global, que son en gran medida los trabajos del GSG. Pero muy concretamente suponen un referente fundamental para los países el trabajo del Impact Task Force, que viene del G7, ¿no? El ya mencionado Impact Task Force, al que Sir Ronald Cohen hacía referencia, que fue formado por 120 líderes mundiales, tanto del sector social, sector público, la empresa privada. Entonces, de este trabajo de Impact Task Force salieron una serie de recomendaciones que bueno, además a ellas contribuyó activamente Spain Up. Y bueno, estas recomendaciones van dirigidas a escalar la movilización de capital de impacto para una transición justa, sostenible e inclusiva. Entonces, ahora, bueno, vamos a cambiar en inglés, because in order to know about the details about the G7 Impact Task Force recommendations, we are honored to have here with us Cliff Pryor, CEO of the GSG. He will talk about what is needed to mobilize private capital for public good at a scale with transparency and integrity. So please, Cliff, thank you very much. I invite you to come to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me today, and thank you for hearing me in English. You really don't want to hear me in Spanish. That wouldn't be good. Really wonderful to see the progress for impact in Spain. And congratulations, Juan and José Luis. Thank you also, Presidente Delgado, and just wonderful to see the progress. So, time to deliver. The Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, founded on the belief that investment done well can benefit all people and our planet. A mission to influence and achieve positive social and environmental outcomes through an effective and diverse movement. And that global movement now, 70 countries strong, 35 of which have a national advisory board for impact, and that includes Spain. And from those countries, we pursue policy initiatives to help achieve positive impact. So impact investing, it's intentional, it's measured, it contributes to solutions, it creates breakthroughs. And we're now at this inflection point on impact, where we have the GSG, we have other market builders, we have impact investors, impact companies, impact banks, we have impact standards, impact regulations coming along, and we have around about $2.3 trillion of impact investment globally. Really great progress. It's not enough. It's not enough by a mile. We need $90 trillion globally to reach net zero and the SDGs. We have a 1.5 Celsius, 1.5 degree global warming marker for 2050. The latest data suggests that 1.5 degree global warming will be hit by 2026, just 4 years away. We've seen fires, floods, storms, and continents over the last couple of years. India has just experienced some weeks of 50 Celsius temperatures. Last year, the west coast of USA and Canada had the same, 50 Celsius. You may know that 52 Celsius is the point at which human life cannot survive. And on the social aspect, already people are experiencing the harms of climate change, and without a strong sense of social justice about the changes that are required for climate mitigation measures. You know, we know from multiple countries, people will rebel, and we will not achieve those climate measures. So we need to do a lot more. There are many challenges for us all to work on, many areas that we could consider, from nature to climate and so on, but without a financial system that positively pushes towards social and climate goals, frankly, we don't have a chance. And that's why we must build a new financial system. That's why the Impact Task Force and its recommendations are so crucial. So, about the task force. 2021, the United Kingdom held the presidency of the G7. That was 8 years since the last UK presidency, which launched the first Impact Task Force and also launched the GSG in the process. We worked last year with our Foreign and Development Agency in the UK and with the UK's National Advisory Board to create an industry-driven, an independent industry-driven Impact Task Force, the ITF. It was chaired by Nick Hurd, former minister in the UK, and the ITF brought together, it was an interesting thing, we invited 121 very high-level leaders, 120 joined, none dropped out, from across sectors, from across 40 countries, with the aim to answer crucial questions about moving private capital for public good with real impact and without leaving people or planet behind. So there was a clear rationale, an urgent need to narrow the gap between rhetoric and delivery, the target of 50% of net zero by 2030, the risks of failing to deliver those goals, very, very dangerous, the critical role of private capital and enterprise. We know that there's never enough public money, so mobilization of private capital, private enterprise innovation, all of this very critical. There are challenges, of course there are challenges, inertia, technical problems, complexity of different stakeholders, demands for concerted effort therefore. So we know that we have a window of opportunity. We've seen that COVID allows people to take actions which otherwise were seen impossible. We've seen a shift in the values of consumers. We've seen huge leaps in digital tech and AI. There are opportunities to deliver and measure social and environmental impact and providing actionable pathways to accelerate change. Nick Hurd's two big questions were tackled through two work streams. The GSG led the first one, and that was also led by Doug Peterson, the CEO of S&P Global, the global ratings agency, addressing impact transparency, integrity, and harmonization. And the second was led by the UK's National Advisory Board for Impact, the Impact Investing Institute, and that was focused on mobilizing capital across asset classes into emerging economies to support a just transition. Three elements of that just transition: climate, socio-economic, and community voice, all to achieve a sustainable future. The members worked intensively for 4 months to answer the questions, and the outputs were launched and handed to the UK government in December. The key recommendations in the first work stream, calling on governments to support and participate in the IFRS accountancy body efforts to create an international sustainability standards board. You'll have heard from Sir Ronald that is now in process, reporting on enterprise value with harmonized standards. Calling on an urgent baseline on that ISSB, for example, company law, scope of directors' duties, voluntary and mandatory disclosure, further evolution of accounting and assurance standards covering all impact data, and urgent work towards mandatory accounting for impact based on these harmonized global standards and data integrity, and all to deliver effective approaches for impact valuation, covering both enterprise and externalities. And in the second work stream, led by the Impact Investing Institute, coordinated an urgent movement to remove the many barriers that there are between what we want to do and the limitations of the flow of institutional investor capital to emerging economies, recognizing that you have to integrate environment and social factors, and those three areas of climate action, social, economic equity, and community voice. And taken together, these recommendations, they provide a change in the system of finance, recognizing the externalities of what investors and companies do, whilst opening up channels of finance available right now. The reactions of the reports were very strong. The first week from the release, 3 million social media responses, 70,000 downloads of the report in the first week, and continuing to develop. Now, 16 countries with national advisory boards pursuing the impact task force. So the government is working with the GSG. It's giving us a formal response soon. It's also working on an energy transition for emerging economies. National advisory boards have been seeking discussions like this one in Spain, translating country languages. It's in Korean, it's in Japanese, it's in Chinese, it's in Spanish. We have 9 countries in Latin America that have signed up for a joint approach to work on the ITF. The Netherlands is working on it, engaging with ministers and local and national government and their market regulators. South Korea bringing together groups of companies to understand how the ITF recommendations would impact, and also creating on an impact valuation group. South Africa working on how their National Advisory Board can become a platform for an energy transition and the social transition alongside. And of course, on the ISSB that you heard about, Emmanuel Faber has already taken the lead on that. We were hoping that we would see more from the German G7 presidency this year, but for very good reasons, they've got plenty of on their plate in terms of the Russian war on Ukraine and its consequences, but they will still pick up a number of the task force recommendations, particularly on impact infrastructure and mobilization of funds. And then the Indonesian presidency of the G20 this year, already sustainable finance working group material is in the system. So it's an outstanding list of initiatives. They're coming week by week. Japan G7 2023 is already in process of working. So what will we be looking for next year? We would expect that the ISSB has brought together a global baseline of harmonized standards for impact with what's called dynamic materiality. That is to say that more and more areas become seen as essential areas for net zero. We expect a voluntary disclosure of impact against those standards starting to become commonplace, and some jurisdictions, including the EU, making impact disclosure mandatory. A new impact valuation reporting collaboration is likely to place with monetary values on initial areas of business like environment, nature-based and decent jobs. We expect to see the opening up of some of the barriers to funds flowing into emerging economies with new mandates from development finance institutions, pushed forward by organizations like Finance in Common, which brings together all of the development banks and development finance institutions globally. Meanwhile, I believe these recommendations and the immense urgency behind them will create breakthrough changes. We already see that ESG is now reaching towards 40% of all listed assets globally. So Ronald talked about sustainable bonds ramping up very rapidly. Impact standards allowing clarity of what's really happening, providing the integrity of the system that we need. And what's called the GFANZ Alliance for Net Zero, which has brought together 130 trillion of private capital committed to achieving net zero across 450 global firms and 45 countries. It's really important that all of the main financial centers, that Spain is ready to change for this change in pace. We know there is an urgent need to narrow gaps between promises and delivery in all of these discussions. And we know that private capital and enterprise will be critical to our shared future. So now, more and more influential leaders are showing the way. This conference is showing the way. And I hope and believe that the Impact Task Force will provide a pathway to a better future and will assist your efforts to create a sustainable future, a future where Spain can be a leader towards that better, safer world. I thank you for your interest today. I thank you for what you'll all be doing for the future, and delighted now, I think, to welcome Gonzalo Gortázar, CEO of CaixaBank, to join me up here. Thank you.